Hello, in this video we are going to remove and replace the rear wheel of a Ducati 900ss. First thing we'll do after getting it up on the stands is remove the axle nut on the right hand side of the bike. Once that's out of the way, we're going to knock our axle through. Place your foot underneath the rear tire to relieve the pressure off the axle and pull your axle through on the left hand side. Then we're going to remove our chain and go back to the right hand side, and our brake will either fall out or it'll be hanging there, and then we'll just slide our brake caliper down. Remove the sprocket from the cush drive, put the sprocket back into the cush drive, take a paper towel, wipe all the dirt and grease and grime off your spacers. We're going to roll our wheel back into place. Next, we're going to grab our axle and we're going to put a light coat of grease on our axle. And do notice that we already have our chain on the sprocket in place, ready to go. Once our axle's greased, we will lift up the rear wheel, slide our axle in. Alright, here we go. We're going to lift up the rear tire with our foot, and our foot is going to balance it so we can get the axle in and there's no weight on the rear wheel. We don't want to push the axle all the way through because we have to get that floating rear caliper into place on the right hand side. So what I found is this is quite a pain in the ass, that this design that Ducati came up with. But we're going to line up our caliper and that little bracket and slide the axle through. I'm pretty sure if I owned a Ducati SS the first thing I would do is replace the bracket with a bracket off of a Ducati CR, an SS CR. So my brake rotor would be on top, my brake caliper would be on top of the rotor. I personally think this floating design is kind of a poor excuse for a brake system, but that's just me. I'm sure Ducati put a lot of thought into this before they designed it. So I've got my axle nut on now, and I'm going to take my socket and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten this down. You're probably going to need a 22mm wrench for the other side as well. Again, Ducati design, I'm not sure why they put a nut on each side of the axle. I think a common sense engineer would have just put a nut on one side and had an axle going through the rear wheel. So we tighten down this axle nut. Finally, we're going to pump the rear brake, make sure our friend has a brake on the way out the door. Thanks for watching my video. Hope it was informative for you. Now go have a great ride.